Probably actually click the start recording button. Almost forgot that. I did it in slightly the wrong order. Farmo's got a puppy foot warmer and is all ready for a book. That's good, because I'm all ready to uh-oh. Oh, I'm so sorry. I can hear the movement of a puppy foot warmer. I said puppy. I said puppy. I said puppy. I said puppy. What a way to start the stream. Wag, 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 wag. Waggy tail. Waggy tail. Oh, you need treats. Oh, what is in my hair? I've got some kind of fluff attached to the back here. I didn't get it at all, did I? It's hanging there. What? Oh, puppy is saying don't forget me. We promised treats. Yep. 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 Puppy is still a little damp. Because he and I just got back from a walk and it started, as he does a shake down beside me here, and it started raining partway through. A minute, huh? Well, we've only just started, so you're not missing anything, except for you did miss some puppy wagging his tail. Now you can just kind of see his butt there. Ben, there you are. There's a cute puppy showing off his butt to the screen. He was being a foot warmer for Farmouse, but then I said, the word puppy. Ericer, hello! Yeah, this is now a puppy stream. I'm gonna have to change the name of the channel to just like Sleet Looks at Puppy, or maybe just Binnabic. How's everybody doing? I have had a very long week. It's been very busy. It's Farmouse's weekend. Oh, and I guess today is Ericer's Sunday or something, isn't it? If I recall correctly. Doing pretty good. Ericer sent me a picture of the Hobbit mug in progress today, and it looks so good. Ooh, have this week off, but working on a big school project. That feels a little bit like the whole, like, guy fell out of a plane. That's bad. But he landed in a haystack. That's good. Except that's not how it goes at all. Anyways. He saw a haystack. He aimed for a haystack. Anyways. Yeah, I've had a very busy week because Sunday was Halloween, and I was also running the first session of a new D&D game, Curse of Strahd, which was great. So I was prepping for that like crazy the week before. And then Monday, Farmouse and I went to look for, well, we realized that because two of the players in our game had both recently had birthdays, and so we had bought a birthday cake to have on Sunday, and we totally forgot about it in the fridge. So we divided it up into pieces, and on Monday we drove around to their houses and surprised them with the surprise cake. And then we were like, okay, after that we'll go and get some cheap candy, because November 1st is cheap candy day. And realized that the Save-On we stopped at was doing, well, we were like, let's see if they're doing flu shots, and they were like, yeah, we're doing walk-ins. So we got our flu shots, and at the same time, I also got my tetanus shot. And then Tuesday, I was just useless. I was aching from head to toe and just like couldn't do anything. Wednesday was a little better, but Wednesday, Binabik had a vet appointment for a dental exam and cleaning, in which he got knocked out. And so we were kind of worried about him for a lot of the day because we dropped him off in the morning and then couldn't pick him up until the afternoon. And he was coughing for the next couple of days, but he hasn't been coughing at all today, so I think he's recovered. So I was still a little out of it on Wednesday, but, you know, doing better, and we did the stream on Wednesday. We read some book. And then yesterday, Thursday, I ran the first session of another D&D game. The Lost Mine of Phandelver for a friend of mine that has never played D&D before, and her friend, and then Farmos was in that as well. Yeah, 2 games in 2 first sessions in 1 week. I did quite the Lost Mine of Phandelver is a very sort of beginner-friendly game. It was the first game written for 5th edition. And so I ended up doing a pretty big... It starts with, like, a goblin ambush, followed by going to the goblin's lair inside... Don't mind me. Carry on your business. Going to the goblin's lair in a cave with like a stream flowing out of it to rescue your employer who's been dragged in there. And so I did a big setup for that. This isn't even the full setup because they didn't finish exploring. But you can see the D&D minis in one of the rooms in the cave there. I put the pieces of this down as they went. I had it kind of already put together in sections. So that was fun, having this whole dungeon set up. I don't know if maybe it's too much, and then this was a picture of them in there, and one of them is a dark elf who can cast dancing lights, and so I stuck an LED on a coin battery for the dancing light spell, which is what's happening there. They're looking at a goblin standing on a bridge up ahead, which you can kind of see, but not super well. Gotta get better at holding things still in front of the camera. Yeah, I think it was pretty fun. The only thing I think what I need to do when I'm using these setups, when I'm using the actual dungeon tiles, is I think I need to describe what they see and let the players take that in, and then put down the tiles that represent that. And that way I give everyone a chance to imagine it before seeing what I put down. As I go out of focus. Because I think kind of what I was doing wrong was they would tell me where they'd go to explore, they'd move their figures, and so I'd go and I'd get the next piece, and then I'd put it down, and then I would describe what they see. But I think that there's a downside to that of they are then having a preconceived notion in their imagination from what they're seeing in front of them, and so they don't actually pause and think about it and picture it in their own head first. So I think I need to swap that around. Pharma says, as a hip kid can confirm. Oh, that also is hip new slang. I see, yes, also. Because it looked very also. And yes, Pharmos is playing a Dragonborn warrior princess. Who ended up being way out of focus. Back here. Back here. Hey. Hey, look at me. Look at my pretty face. Oh, look at me. Oh, wow. Focus in, please. Get it. There we go. Um, yeah, so I think that I need to adjust my GMing style a bit in using these tiles, um, because I do think that it detracts a little bit if I don't let them imagine the scene before putting the tiles down. So I think that's maybe the best way for me to fix that problem, which wasn't something I'd really thought of ahead of time. But you know, learn as you go. You got to improve your techniques. Yeah, so that was yesterday, and we played until pretty late with both of the games. And then also, the whole new Animal Crossing downloadable content has come out. There's two of them, two new DLCs that Farmos and I just started up for the first time today. And man, there is way too much stuff to like. I played for a. Oh, hello again. What are you doing back there? Being a zany puppy? He's dodging my. What do you want a treat? Is that it? Did you come over here for more treats? Well, all right, but only because I like having you around. Wow, he's pushing me. He's. I had my feet crossed up on the spinny chair, and He jumped up and started pushing me around. I gotta like tilt the camera down so you can see him better. Oh, there he is. It's enough for now. Animal Crossing's fun. It's a very relaxing game. A very relaxed game. Um, oh, new character. Skyrim. I actually have not played very much Skyrim. I played much more like, um, much more Morrowind, and even I think a fair amount more of Oblivion. But for some reason I never got very far in Skyrim. Not for any real good reason. He is full of beans. I don't want to disturb him because this is hilarious. He's got his hedgehog, super hedgehog, that he's whipping around. Off he goes. Okay. Yeah. I actually even have, like, I own Skyrim VR. What? Hey. What? Oh man, full of beans. Sharky's tried playing Elder Scrolls Online after, but don't care for MMOs. I've been playing a little bit of New World recently, although not for the past week or so, or 2 weeks even, because I've been so busy. But yeah, I even own like Skyrim VR. But the problem with that is that I find vertical movement, up and down in VR, uh, makes me feel nauseous pretty quickly. Nauseated makes me feel nauseated pretty quickly. Um, I think I can get myself more accustomed to horizontal movement, especially forward and backwards, because I can kind of pretend to be going that direction myself, and like it's easier to trick my brain. But when it gets to like vertical movement, I think my brain goes like, "Whoa, we're not actually moving up and down. This isn't right," and so I get real queasy real fast. And there's a lot of vertical movement in Skyrim. You're constantly climbing mountains and things like that. Um, so I did not play very much Skyrim VR. And also, I've got a whole other story with Skyrim VR that I'm not going to tell. Oh, Beat Saber while riding the exercise bike. That is an interesting combo. That's, huh. Hmm. I wonder if there would be some way to mechanically combine the two of them. VR biker. Farmhouse needs more of a turn-based combat system. Hmm. Well, the impolite thing to have done would have been to take a video so you could show the rest of us. Uh, of Mike riding the exercise bike while playing Beat Saber. Okay, well, alright, maybe he wouldn't have appreciated that video being taken then. So yeah, quite a long story short, I have had a very busy week, and I'm very tired. As a result, I need I need a downtime day or two. Maybe tomorrow I will do my best to just not think too much. I need to spend a few days not thinking about D&D, because as much as I enjoy D&D, when I'm running a game, it takes a lot of mental uh, brain power. I don't know. It takes a lot of mental energy, especially when it's the day of and I run the game. After that, I'm just always super tired. Um, but even just preparing ahead of time, I spend too much time stressing about how it's going to go. About if I'm going to get things right, or like what are the players going to do, what decisions are they going to make, am I going to anticipate what they're doing wrong and then they're going to go off in a direction I'm not expecting, and then I'm going to have nothing to prepared for where they go or whatever, things like that. I stress about it too much. um, so while I enjoy doing it, it takes a lot of my spell slots. And but we're playing again next Thursday, the Curse of Strahd game. We're playing this coming Thursday, so I will need to do some preparing. But luckily, I know more or less where they're going to be, so it won't take too much prep ahead of time. So I'm going to give myself a few days where I'm just not going to think about the games as much as possible. Try and recover those spell slots. I need a long rest. So, what about this book that we've been reading, huh? How about that? Sharkies have had a slow week, so it feels like Halloween was forever ago. I've had a long week, so it feels like Halloween was forever ago. We're on page 260 out of 412. Vimes has been getting more and more irritated with how Erica is going to paint while I read. That sounds lovely. Vimes has been getting kind of more and more upset with how king crazy everybody has become in Ankh-Morpork since they discovered that there was going to be a king. Suddenly, everybody's a monarchist. They all love royalty, and they're all super excited about this king and how the king's going to make everything better for everyone forever. And Vimes isn't thrilled about that. The dragon has, meanwhile, the dragon that the king to be apparently had killed in order to become the king, that dragon has reappeared, surprisingly unkilled, and has burnt down a local secret society. Well, It was a place that was rented out to three different groups: a fine art appreciation society, Hem Hem, a folk song and dance club, which it turns out Corporal Nobbs is a member of, which was quite a surprise to everyone else on the watch. Now they know something about what Nobby actually does in his free time, and it turns out it's folk song and dance. And the elucidated Brethren of the Ebon Night. Which, I love that they didn't even have like a false, a false name that they rented it out under. They actually rented the building under the name the elucidated Brethren of the Ebon Night. That's pretty great to me. And then, meanwhile, the librarian took a ball of thread and set out into the library, going headlong into L space until he emerged a week ago, when the book, The Summoning of Dragons, had not been stolen yet. And so he retrieved it from the shelf himself and began reading it. It sounded like he was going to be very careful not to be discovered. He was being very careful not to leave footprints. So I'm sure he will put it back when he's done so that it can be stolen. But this way at least he knows what's going on with it. Brother Fingers, who had been apprehended by the watch. Was Erica here? Erica wasn't here on Wednesday. Erica, you're going to need to actually go and watch Wednesday's stream at some point, because there were a lot of library puns and I lost it. I almost had to give up the book. It was too much for me. So I feel like that's something that you might need to there was just, it was probably partly that I was still somewhat recovering from the various shots that I'd received. But there were a lot of things on Wednesday's stream that I don't know, I cracked up over. One of them was Brother Fingers ran screaming from the watch, and they couldn't figure out why, because they didn't threaten him or anything. All they did was, after they got back from the bakery, they thought he looked kind of hungry, so they asked him if he would like his figgin toasted. And for some reason, he ran screaming into the night. So, Brother Fingers is out there somewhere. That's probably all of the main points. Did I miss anything else? Vimes had gone to get something to eat, and at his local restaurant, Harga's, who was also going crown crazy, was actually cleaning out the coffee pot and changing the fat in the frying pan. Vimes got pretty upset about that. And that's about where we ended the last stream. Did I forget anything important? I hope not, because it's already 7:25. What the heck? I did a lot of talking about how my week's been. Farmos thinks that's that. I think the thing that really got me about the library puns was how many of them happened in how little time. Like, it was just entire sentences made of puns. Like, ugh. It was too much. Alright, well, I better get reading, because I don't have the energy to go for too long, so I'm gonna probably stop around 8 tonight, I think, instead of going too far past. All right. In another time and place, the librarian finished reading. He'd reached the end of the text. Not the end of the book. There was plenty more book. It had been scorched beyond the point of legibility, though. The Sharkies say it was a well-constructed piece. Nice. Not that the last few unburned pages were very easy to read. The author's hand had been shaking. He'd been writing fast, and he'd blotted a lot. But the librarian had wrestled with many a terrifying text in some of the worst books ever bound. Words that tried to read you as you read them. Words that writhed on the page. At least these weren't words like that. These were just the words of a man frightened for his life. A man writing a dreadful warning. It was a page a little back from the burned section that drew the librarian's eye. He sat and stared at it for some time. Then he stared at the darkness. It was his darkness. He was asleep out there somewhere. Somewhere out there, a thief was heading for this place to steal this book. And then someone would read this book, read these words, and do it anyway. His hands itched. All he had to do was hide the book, or drop onto the thief's head and unscrew it by the ears. He stared into the darkness again. But that would be interfering with the course of history. Horrible things could happen. The librarian knew all about this sort of thing. It was part of what you had to know before you were allowed into L-space. He'd seen pictures in ancient books. Time could bifurcate. Bifurcate, right? Bifurcate, I think. Parmo says, no librarian, no unscrewing people's heads. Time could bifurcate like a pair of trousers. I love this analogy. I've used this analogy. You could end up in the wrong leg, living a life that was actually happening in the other leg, talking to people who weren't in your leg, walking into walls that weren't there anymore. Life could be horrible in the wrong trouser of time. Farmhouse thinks bifurcate? Bifurcate? You're leaving out an I. Oh no, I'm inserting an I. It's not, there's no I between the R and C. I just thought there was, even though I just read the word. Bifurcate? Alright. It's one of those words that I've definitely only ever read, and apparently every time I read it, I imagined an extra I in there for some reason. Sharkies say, we've got the wrong trousers, Grommet. Besides, it was against library rules. Footnote 1. The 3 rules of the librarians of time and space are 1. Silence. 2. Books must be returned no later than the last date shown. And 3. Do not interfere with the nature of causality. End of footnote. The assembled librarians of time and space would certainly have something to say about it if he started to tinker with causality. He closed the bookshelf he closed the book. He didn't close the shelf. He closed the book carefully and tucked it back into the shelf. Then he swung gently from bookcase to bookcase until he reached the doorway. For a moment, he stopped and looked down at his own sleeping body. Perhaps he wondered, briefly, whether to wake himself up, have a little chat, tell himself that he had friends and not to worry. If so, he must have decided against it. You could get yourself into a lot of trouble that way. Instead, he slipped out of the door and lurked in the shadows, and followed the hooded thief when it came out clutching the book, and waited near the dread portal in the rain until the elucidated brethren had met, and, when the last one left, followed him to his home, and murmured to himself in anthropoid surprise, and then ran back to his library and the treacherous pathways of L-space. Time travel investigation. By mid-morning, the streets were packed. Vimes had docked Nobby a day's salary for waving a flag, and an air of barbed gloom settled over the yard, like a big black cloud with occasional flashes of lightning in it.
"Get up in 'em, high police," muttered Nobby. "That's all very well to say."
"I was looking forward to lining the streets," said Colin. "I'd have got a good view."
"You were going on about privilege and the rights of man the other night," said Nobby accusingly.
"Yes? Well, one of the privileges and rights of this man is getting a good view," said the sergeant. "That's all I'm saying."
"I've never seen the captain in such a filthy temper," said Nobby. "I liked it better when he was on the drink. I reckon he's—"
"You know, I think Errol is really ill," said Carrot. They turned towards the fruit basket. "He's very hot, and his skin looks all shiny." "What's the right temperature for a dragon?" said Colin.
"Yeah, how do you take it?" said Nobby.
"I think we ought to ask Lady Ramkin to have a look at him," said Carrot. "She knows about these things." "Nope, she'll be getting ready for the coronation. We shouldn't go disturbing her," said Colin. He stretched out his hand to Errol's quivering flanks. "I used to have a dog that— Arr! That's not hot, that's boiling." "I've offered him lots of water, and he just won't touch it." "What are you doing with that kettle, Nobby?" Nobby looked innocent.
"Well, I thought we might as well make a tea before we go out. It's a shame to waste—"
"Take it off him!" Noon came. The fog didn't lift, but it did thin a bit, to allow a pale yellow haze where the sun should have been. Although the passage of years had turned the post of captain of the watch into something rather shabby, it still meant that Vimes was entitled to a seat at official occasions. The pecking order had moved it, though, so that now he was in the lowest tier on the rickety bleachers between the master of the Fellowship of Beggars and the head of the Teachers' Guild. Ouch. That's rough. That's, low blow. He didn't mind that. Anything was better than the top row among the assassins,
thieves, merchants, and all the other things that had floated to the top of society. He never knew what to talk about. Anyway, the teacher was restful company, since he didn't do much but clench and unclench his hands occasionally, and whimper. Hello. You come to keep an eye on me? Alright. Something wrong with your neck, Captain? Said the chief beggar politely, as they waited for the coaches. What? Said Vimes distractedly. You keep on staring upwards, said the beggar. Oh. No, nothing wrong, said Vimes. The beggar wrapped his velvet cloak around him. You couldn't by chance spare... He paused, calculating a sum in accordance with his station. About $300 for a 12-course civic banquet, could you? No. Fair enough, said the chief beggar amiably. Amiably? It's amiably. He sighed. It wasn't a rewarding job, being chief beggar. It was the differentials that did for you. Low-grade beggars made a reasonable enough living on pennies. But people tended to look the other way when you asked them for a 16-bedroom mansion for the night. Vimes resumed his study of the sky. Up on the dais... Dais? Man, I'm having a lot of these words where I'm like second-guessing myself. The high priest of blind Io, who last night, by dint of elaborate ecumenical argument, I'm pretty sure that's more or less correct, and eventually, by a club with nails in it, had won the right to crown the king, fussed over his preparations. By the small, portable, sacrificial altar, a tethered billy goat was peacefully chewing the cud, and possibly thinking in goat, "What a lucky billy goat I am, to be given such a good view of the proceedings. This is going to be something to tell the kids." Vimes scanned the diffused outlines of the nearest buildings. Yep, thinking in goat. That's right, Erica. A distant cheering suggested that the ceremonial procession was on its way. There was a scuffle of activity around the dais as Lupin once chivied a scramble of servants who rolled a purple carpet down the steps. The Sharkies appreciated my delivery about the kids. I felt like it needed a little emphasis. Across the square, amongst the ranks of Ankh-Morpork's faded aristocracy, Lady Ramkin's face tilted upwards. Around the throne, which had been hastily created out of wood and gold foil, a number of lesser priests, some of them with slight head wounds, shuffled into position. Vimes shifted in his seat, aware of the sound of his own heartbeat, and glared at the haze over the river, and saw the wings. "Dear Mother and Father," wrote Carrot, in between staring dutifully into the fog. "Well, the town is en fete for the coronation, which is more complicated than at home, and now I am on day duty as well. This is a shame, because I was going to watch the coronation with Reet,
but it does not do to complain. I must go now, because we are expecting a dragon any minute, although it does not exist really. Your loving son, Carrot. P.S. Have you seen anything of Minty lately?
You idiot!
Sorry, said Vimes. Sorry. People were climbing back into their seats, many of them giving him furious looks. Once was white with fury.
How could you have been so stupid?
He raged. Vimes stared at his own fingers. I thought I saw, he began.
It was a raven. You know what ravens are? There must be hundreds of them in the city.
In the fog, you see, the size wasn't easy to, Vimes mumbled.
And poor Master Greetling. You ought to have known what loud noises do to him.
The head of the Teachers' Guild had to be led away by some kind people. The Sharkies love how much anticipation there is in this scene.
Shouting out like that,
Wantz went on. Look, I said I'm sorry. It was an honest mistake.
I've had to hold up the procession and everything.
Vimes said nothing. He could feel hundreds of amused or unsympathetic eyes on him. Well, he muttered, I'd better be getting back to the yard. Wantz's eyes narrowed.
No,
he snapped.
But you can go home if you like, or anywhere your fancies take you. Give me your badge.
Huh? Wantz held out his hand.
Your badge,
he repeated. My badge?
That's what I said. I want to keep you out of trouble.
Vimes looked at him in astonishment.
But it's my badge.
And you're going to give it to me, said Wantz grimly, by order of the king.
What do you mean? He doesn't even know.
Vimes heard the wailing in his own voice. Wantz scowled. But he will, he said, and I don't expect he'll even bother to appoint a successor. Vimes slowly unclipped the verdigreed disc of copper, weighed it in his hand, and then tossed it to Wantz without a word. For a moment, he considered pleading, but something rebelled. He turned and stalked off through the crowd. So that was it. As simple as that. After half a lifetime of service, no more city watch. Huh. Vimes kicked at the pavement. It'd be some kind of royal guard now, with plumes in their damn helmets. Well, he'd had enough. It wasn't a proper life, anyway, in the watch. You didn't meet people in the best of circumstances. There must be hundreds of other things he could do, and if he thought for long enough, he could probably remember what some of them were. Pseudopolis Yard was off the route of the procession, and as he stumbled into the watch house, he could hear the distant cheering beyond the rooftops. Across the city, the temple gongs were being sounded. Now they are ringing the gongs, thought Vimes, but soon they will not be ringing the gongs. Not much of an aphorism, he thought, but he could work on it. He had the time now. Vimes noticed the mess. Errol had started eating again. He'd eaten most of the table, the grate, the coal scuttle, several lamps, and the squeaky rubber hippo. Now he lay in his box again, skin twitching, whimpering in his sleep. A right mess you've made, Vimes said Vimes enigmatically. Still, at least he wouldn't have to tidy it up. He opened his desk drawer. Someone had eaten into that, too. All that was left was a few shards of glass. Sergeant Colin hauled himself onto the parapet around the Temple of Small Gods. He was too old for this sort of thing. He joined for the bell ringing, not sitting around on high places waiting for dragons to find him. He got his breath back and peered through the fog. "Anyone still up here?" he whispered. Carrot's voice sounded dead and featureless in the dull air. "Here I am, Sergeant," he said. "I was just checking if you were still here," said Colin. "I'm still here, Sergeant," said Carrot obediently. Colin joined him. "Just checking you were not et," he said, trying to grin. "I haven't been et," said Carrot. "Oh," said Colin. "Good, then." He tapped his fingers on the damp stonework, feeling he ought to make his position absolutely clear. "Just checking," he repeated. "Part of my duty, see? Going around, sort of thing. It's not that I'm frightened of being up on the roofs by myself, you understand? Thick up here, isn't it?" "Yes, Sergeant." "Everything all okay?" Nobby's muffled voice sidled its way through the thick air, quickly followed by its owner. "Yes, Corporal," said Carrot. "What you doing up here?" Colin demanded. "I was just coming up to check Lance Constable Carrot was all right," said Nobby innocently. "What were you doing, Sergeant?" "We're all right," said Carrot, beaming. "That's good, isn't it?" The two NCOs shifted uneasily and avoided looking at one another. It seemed like a long way back to their posts, across the damp, cloudy, and above all, exposed rooftops. Colin made an executive decision. "Sod this," he said, and found a piece of fallen statuary to sit on. Nobby leaned on the parapet and winkled a damp dog end from the unspeakable ashtray behind his ear. "Heard the precision go by," he observed. Colin filled his pipe and struck a match on the stone beside him. "If that dragon's alive," he said, blowing out a plume of smoke and turning a small patch of fog into smog, "then it'll have got the hell away from here, I'm telling you. Not the right sort of place for dragons, a city," he added, in the tones of someone doing a great job of convincing himself. "It'll have gone off somewhere where there's high places and plenty to eat. You mark my words." "Somewhere like the city, you mean?" said Carrot. "Shut up," said the other two in unison. "Chuck us the matches, Sergeant," said Nobby. Colin tossed the bundle of evil yellow-headed lucifers across the leads. Evil yellow-headed lucifers. I assume that's across the leads, but it could be across the leads, I'm not sure. Nobby struck one, which was immediately blown out. Shreds of fog drifted past him. "Wind's getting up," he observed. "Good. Can't stand this fog," said Colin. "What was I saying?" "You were saying the dragons will be miles away," prompted Nobby. "Oh, right. Well, it stands to reason, doesn't it? I mean, I wouldn't hang around here if I could fly away. If I could fly, I wouldn't be sitting on a roof on some manky old statue. If I could fly, I'd—" "What statue?" said Nobby, cigarette halfway to his mouth. "This one," said Colin, thumping the stone. "And don't try to give me the willies, Nobby. You know there's hundreds of moldy old statues up on Small Gods." "No, I don't," said Nobby. "What I do know is they were all taken down last month when they re-leaded the roof." There's just the roof and the dome, and that's it. You have to take notice of little things like that, he added, when you're detectoring. In the damp silence that followed, Sergeant Colin looked down at the stone he was sitting on. It had a taper and a scaly pattern and a sort of indefinable tail-like quality. Then he followed its length up and into the rapidly thinning fog. On the dome of small gods, the dragon raised its head, yawned, and unfolded its wings. The unfolding wasn't a simple operation. It seemed to go on for some time. Oh, I think that might be for us. No? Okay. Oh, no, I guess it wouldn't. It seemed to go on for some time as the complex biological machinery of ribs and pleats slid apart. Then, with wings outstretched, the dragon yawned, took a few steps to the edge of the roof, and launched itself into the air. After a while, a hand appeared over the edge of the parapet. It flailed around for a moment until it got a decent grip. There was a grunt. Carrot hauled himself back onto the roof and pulled the other two up behind him. They lay flat out on the leads? I don't know. Panting. Carrot observed the way that the dragon's talons had scored deep grooves in the metal. You couldn't help noticing things like that. He panted. Hadn't we better warn people? Colin dragged himself forward until he could look across the city. I don't think we need bother, he said. I think they'll soon find out. The high priest of Blind Io was stumbling over his words. There had never been an official coronation service in Ankh-Morpork, as far as he could find out. The old kings had managed quite well with something on the lines of, We hath got the crown, i' faith, and we will kill any whoreson who tries to take it away, by the Lord Harry. Apart from anything else, this was rather short. He'd spent a long time drafting something longer and more in keeping with the spirit of the times, and was having some trouble remembering it. He was also being put off by the goat, which was watching him with loyal interest. Get on with it, once hissed, from his position behind the throne. All in good time, the high priest hissed back. This is a coronation, I'll have you know. You might try to show a little respect. Of course I'm showing respect. Now, get on. There was a shout, off to the right. Once glared into the crowd. It's that Ramkin woman, he said. What's she up to? People around her were chattering excitedly now. Fingers pointed all the same way, like a small fallen forest. There were one or two screams, and then the crowd moved like a tide. Once looked along the wide street of small gods. It wasn't a raven out there. Not this time. The dragon flew slowly, only a few feet above the ground,
wings sculling gracefully through the air. The flags that crisscrossed the street were caught up and snapped like so much cobweb, piling on the creature's spine plates and flapping back along the length of its tail. It flew with head and neck fully extended, as if the great body was being towed like a barge. The people on the street yelled and fought one another for the safety of doorways. It paid them no attention. It should have come roaring, but the only sounds were the creaking of wings and the snapping of banners. It should have come roaring. Not like this, not slowly and deliberately, giving terror time to mature. It should have come threatening, not promising. It should have come roaring, not flying gently to the accompaniment of the zip and zing of merry bunting. Vimes pulled open the other drawer of his desk and glared at the paperwork, such as there was of it. There wasn't really much in there that he could call his own. A scrap of sugar bag reminded him that he now owed the tea kitty 6 pence. Odd. He wasn't angry yet. He would be later on, of course. By evening, he'd be furious. Drunk and furious. But not yet. Not yet. It hadn't really sunk in, and he knew he was just going through the motions as a preventative against thinking. Errol stirred sluggishly in his box, raised his head, and whined. "What's the matter, boy?" said Vimes, reaching down. "Upset stomach?" The little dragon's skin was moving as though heavy industry was being carried on inside. Nothing in Diseases of the Dragon said anything about this. From the swollen stomach came sounds like a distant and complicated war in an earthquake zone. That surely wasn't right. Sybil Ramkin said you had to pay great attention to a dragon's diet, since even a minor stomach upset would decorate the walls and ceiling with pathetic bits of scaly skin. But in the past few days, well, there had been cold pizzas, and the ash from Nobby's horrible dog ends, and all in all, Errol had eaten more or less what he liked, which was just about everything to judge by the room, not to mention the contents of the bottom drawer. I've missed quite a bit of chat. Let's see. Farmos, oh no, dragon? Oh no, just a raven. Just a raven and nothing more. Farmos likes the scene. Sharky say, the repetition of "it should have come roaring" reminds me of poetry, specifically some Middle English one. I sing of a maiden. Yeah, there's definitely some intent with that "it should have come roaring" bit. We really haven't looked after you very well, have we? Said Vimes. Treated you like a dog, really. He wondered what effect squeaky rubber hippos had on the digestion. Vimes became slowly aware that the distant cheering had turned to screams. He stared vaguely at Errol, and then smiled an incredibly evil smile, and stood up. There were sounds of panic, and the mob on the run. He placed his battered helmet on his head, and gave it a jaunty tap. Then, humming a mad little tune, he sauntered out of the building. Errol remained quite still for a while, and then, with extreme difficulty, half crawled and half rolled out of his box. Strange messages were coming from the massive part of his brain that controlled his digestive system. It was demanding certain things that he couldn't put a name to.
Fortunately, it was able to describe them in minute detail to the complex receptors in his enormous nostrils. They flared, subjecting the air of the room to an intimate examination. His head turned, triangulating. He pulled himself across the floor and began to eat, with every sign of enjoyment, Carrot's tin of armor polish. Let's see how long this next bit is. Oh, it's another, like, 4.5 pages. Maybe we should stop there. I'm feeling pretty tired, and I did say something about stopping around 8 o'clock, and it is now 8:01. And this next bit is a little longer, so I think that's a good place to stop. A shorter actual reading of the book tonight. I hope nobody minds too terribly much. Eating with great enjoyment Carrot's tin of armor polish. I don't know why that bit has always kind of stuck in my mind. I remember that part very clearly. Oh boy. I definitely need to rest a bit tomorrow. Hopefully sleep alright tonight. I slept terribly last night. Despite being exhausted, I was up until like 6 a.m. for no good reason. Fun stuff. Well, I'm gonna eat some pad thai. It's been a little while since I've had some pad thai. I hope it's good. Some of the places we order from are like, sometimes they're very good and sometimes they're kind of not so good. It's a little hit and miss, unfortunately. I'm looking forward to this next bit, though. We're getting some exciting parts in the book. So, we'll be back next Wednesday for that. I'll read again before I have to run any more D&D. Sharkies haven't had much of pad thai, to be honest. Oh, it's, I get pad thai semi-regularly. Erica thinks pad thai is super yummy. Yeah, I agree. The tricky thing is, some restaurants make pad thai with ketchup, and I do not like that. I much prefer pad thai being made with like a tamarind sauce. But every now and then, I need to check the menu because sometimes the restaurants will describe that the pad thai is made with like a tomato sauce, and that's when you know it's ketchup. I have come across that at a few different places, and yeah, it's not great. One place that we go to, I think it's Green Basil that we go to, has the option of either pad thai with a tomato-based sauce or with tamarind, which is weird that they actually have both. But I much prefer tamarind. I make a pretty decent pad thai myself, but the last time I made it, I screwed it up, and that was disappointing. It did not turn out well the most recent time I made it, so I need to take another shot at that sometime soon to redeem myself. I overcooked the noodles. You really shouldn't be using hot water to soak rice noodles. You should just use like room temperature water and leave them for, let them soak for like 7 minutes. But I used warm water and for some reason, and like boiling water, and it really ruined the texture of them, and it ended up not being very good, sadly. So I need to redo that at some point and redeem my honor. What do the Sharkies get when you want something tasty when you're ordering out? Do you have anything specific that you like that isn't just, I don't know, what's North American food? Burgers, pizza, something beyond that. What's your more out of the ordinary food. Not that pad thai is super. Like, I mean, pad thai I feel like is kind of the standard order if you're getting Thai food. That's, I think, the default like boring option is pad thai, even though it's tasty. But you know, it's an easy thing to order. Oh, wag wag wag, waggy tail. You come running up and then just wag your tail at me. Don't worry, I'm just about done here. I'll come with you soon. He likes to escort me back to the couch. He doesn't like it when we're in different rooms. Doing a sniff. I also like gang dang, which I'm probably pronouncing horribly wrong, but it's like a red curry with like bamboo shoots. Usually pizza. When you're wanting good stuff, you either go for sushi, pho, or Indian food. Yeah. Uh, I feel like, I don't know, I guess we have some okay Indian places near us, but nothing really good. Like in Chilliwack, they've got Shandar Hut, which is fantastic Indian food. And we don't have anything that quality here, sadly. And we've got a pretty decent pho place we order from. There's Little Min's, which is at Market Crossing, has this satay pho, which is like a spicy peanut sauce um, in the for the soup base that is real tasty. Um, though only if you like spicy, I suppose. Um, I don't order North American Chinese food very much. I'm not a huge fan personally. I don't hate it, and like like very very rarely, like maybe once or twice a year, I actually will be like, I could go for some Chinese food, but it's very uncommon. There is a real good place. I mean, we live in Richmond, so like the best Chinese food in North America apparently can be found here. Um, there's actually a really good place at Richmond Center, I think, or is that Lansdowne? One of the malls, which I think was called like 99 Restaurant or something like that. That was quite tasty. We've gotten some good stuff from there. It's at Lansdowne. Okay. And yeah, I like sushi occasionally. The only problem with that I find with sushi is I do not think that takeout or delivery sushi, like I don't think sushi leaves the restaurant very well, and we don't eat in restaurants very frequently these days. And for a full like year and a half we didn't eat in restaurants at all. So it's been a while since I feel like I've actually had good sushi. um, and also, I mean, nearby us, like really near where we live, there aren't really good sushi options. We have to do a little bit of driving in order to get to any good sushi places. Um, and yeah, I'm pretty sure the Chinese place is still there. It's a very popular restaurant, so I'd be surprised if it had shut down. Sadly, I think one place that did fall prey to COVID lack of business was this Chinese noodle house that was near my kung fu school that I would stop in occasionally after kung fu, that had some very tasty but very spicy, um, like beef noodle soup. But it was like the like chili oil floating in pools on top of the soup. It was very spicy, but I like hot food, and it was really good. Erica agrees about takeout sushi not being the best. Yeah, yeah. The sushi place near your place is very good. Um, if I'm thinking of the same place, are you talking about the place in Sardis, near like the A&W and Dairy Queen? Because that place is pretty tasty. It has some good stuff. Yeah. If I'm an A tier friend. Hey, I am an A-tier friend. I proved it. I bought myself Shandar Hut. I went and got it. And I've also been to that sushi place with Mike, so nah. You have a similar sushi situation where you are? Similar to Erica or similar to us, where you need to go a little further? Farmo says, supposedly there's a good Mexican place near us, but we haven't found it yet. That is where we lived previously to here. We lived in an apartment in Steveston, and Steveston had some great restaurants, like within walking distance of our apartment, and that was great. Um, there was a great Mexican place, but then it like closed for renovations and just never reopened, sadly. But there was good fish and chips and things like that. And then we moved here, and we moved into an actual like house, well, townhouse, which is much nicer and it's more central to a lot of places, but the food situation is not nearly as good or convenient as it was there, sadly. There was also a really good sushi place back at our old place. Oh, and yeah, there was the Malaysian place, which we almost never go to anymore because Stevenson's kind of far away from here, and they had laksa, and I love laksa. Laksa is delicious. That was something that I was really looking forward to when we traveled to Singapore, was getting laksa in Singapore. But sadly, I didn't get really good laksa in Singapore. We didn't find quite the right place for it, I think. We tried one place that got really good reviews that was like in this weird mall, this like weird, really vertical, really small mall full of like tiny shops. And it had this laksa place that got really good reviews, but then the laksa was only okay, and like the noodles were all like pre-cut up in it into like bite-sized pieces so that you didn't need like you could just eat it all with a spoon, and that was really strange to me. Sharky say a lot of good options and one really nice sushi place, but better for dine-in. Ah, yeah. Ended up being like fast food. Out talking about the laksa, yeah. Uh, that said, I very frequently miss some of the food that we had in Singapore. I will, like, it's been, like 2 years now, 2 or 3 years now since we went. 2 years, I think, since we went to Singapore, and I still will frequently be like every, I don't know, couple of weeks, I'll be like, that chili chicken, that chili, those chili lotus root slices, that laksa, like, think of a lot of the food. The coffee, oh, the coffee. I miss it. Yeah, we need to make laksa again soon, or get it from. I mean, if we make it ourselves, then you can eat it too. Then Farmhouse can eat it. If I get it from the Malaysian place, then it's not Farmhouse friendly in ingredients. Anyways, all this talk of food has carried us another 13 minutes. So I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop talking about food. Especially, I don't know, I need to go eat some food. So this has been fun. Thanks for chatting with me about all these various things. Chucky said good food takes time. Erica says enjoy my food. Thank you very much. Puppy, come to say goodbye to everybody. You come to say goodbye. Wagging his tail, you can kind of see. All right. With that, have a good night, everyone. See you next Wednesday, hopefully. Bye bye.